county or any other jurisdiction might have. The core of the tip is basically the program list of projects, and this particular program covers the years 2023 through 2026, covers the entire area of Olmsted County, and the focus in particular is on the projects that will receive federal funding over the next 4 years. So that's sort of the impetus. This is a requirement of the federal government that every urban area, like Rochester, has a metropolitan planning organization like ROROC, and one of the things that MPO is required to do is prepare these tips every year. Deals with all modes, highway improvements, transit, both transit services as well as physical infrastructure related to transit, and also potentially pedestrian and bicycle facilities. There are federal programs that fund those type of facilities as well, so you will see some of those projects show up also. ROROC, which I've been referring to, is the MTO for the Rochester and Olmsted County area. So ROROC is led by a 16-member policy board. Most of those members are elected officials. So, for example, of those 16, 5 of them represent the city of Rochester, which includes the mayor and 4 council members. 3 represent Olmsted County. 2 represent the townships, and they come to us through the Township Officers Association. There are 3 representing the cities other than Rochester. So among the small cities in the area, they choose 3 representatives. And we also have 2 general public members that are selected by ROROC based on an application process. As I said, we're responsible for doing a tip annually. In addition to that, we also are required to prepare a long-range transportation plan. So that plan, at the time that we adopted, actually has a horizon of 25 years, and then we're required to update it every 5 years. So just before we get a new update done, it's sort of shortened its horizon down to 20 years, so to speak. So that's another major effort that comes up, as I say, every 4 or 5 years. And then in the intervening years, most of our work is devoted towards conducting more targeted studies. They may be investment studies like a corridor evaluation or a sub-area evaluation. They may be a service type study related to like the issue of transit service. And then we have issues that come up through community comment and from our policy board that we address as well, more policy oriented type of things. So that's a little bit on ROROC and what our function in the greater scheme of things is here. Just talk a little bit about the tip, and really the rest of this will be about the tip. We're in the middle of public comment period that we are required to conduct prior to adoption of the documents. So we have a 30-day public comment period that started 10 days ago and will carry through September 21st, I believe was the date. And then on September 28th, our policy board will consider a resolution to adopt this document. And from us, it goes into MnDOT, and it gets incorporated actually into what's called a statewide transportation improvement program that covers, basically blends together the TIPs from all the urban areas as well as all the projects that MnDOT has from the kind of non-urban areas across the state, and that all gets blended into one statewide document. So with that, we're just going to jump right into things here. So again, the tip covers 4 years. So we're going to walk through this year by year and just give you a real brief overview of where the projects are that are scheduled to receive federal funding. So in 2023, we'll start kind of in the Rochester Marion area. And I'll start here in Rochester itself. We have two transit-related projects downtown. One is related to doing some upgrades to the existing transit center on Second Street, in terms of some improvements to the sidewalks, and I think that's basically the bulk of the work. There may be some other minor things there. And then also starting in 2023 will be a project to develop a transit station at St. Mary's Hospital. So the actual station element of that will be on the north side of Second Street. It will be an enclosed facility, but open with a lot of glass and so on. There'll be kiosks and information for transit users to access there. There'll be real-time message boards so people can see when buses on different routes are expected to arrive at that station and that kind of thing. There will be an underground tunnel from that transit station on the north side under Second Street and into St. Mary's Hospital. So that will be new as well. And then when the rapid transit, downtown rapid transit project comes along in a few years, there'll actually be new stations, or bus stop type stations for the actual users along Second Street that will be built at that time. So we have those transit projects. We have a trail project in the southeastern part of the city along the old railroad corridor between 16th Street and 20th Street that will be built. And that will tie into a trail or path along 20th Street that already exists. And then there'll be a segment of it that goes west on 16th Street over to the fairgrounds and ties into the path system in and around the fairgrounds as well. So kind of tie together the southeast part of the city there, eliminating that kind of gap between 16th and 20th Street. Jump up here to the north side, another transit-related project. The city is kind of initiating efforts to sort of transition from having park and ride lots where they're renting parking spaces from private parties and starting to move towards a system where they actually own the park and ride lot. So the first new park and ride that will be city-owned that's being developed will be at the 75th Street Interchange on the southwest quadrant of that interchange, where there was some excess land that was bought for the interchange projects, so that will now be converted into use as a park and ride. And that will basically replace the IBM park and ride in the future. And then west of Rochester, some safety projects on Highway 14. These first two here I'll talk about are kind of lower cost projects. One is to install a cable median barrier along in the median of Highway 14, starting just west of 52 and carrying out to close to 10th Street in Byron. And the other one is the sort of reconfiguration, I guess I'll call it, into what we call a reduced conflict intersection at the intersection of 14 with County State Aid Highway 3. And so what that means is that intersection the median crossover will be restricted so that north-south through traffic, for example, will not be able to go straight across, as well as northbound or southbound traffic approaching Highway 14 that wants to make a left turn onto Highway 14 will not be able to make that direct movement. And what those movements will be replaced with is what we call a J turn. So people wanting to make that north-south movement or make that left turn will first make a right turn and then merge over and make kind of a U-turn, a left U-turn, to then continue on either their northbound movement or their east or westbound movements. So this J-turn type design has been found to be much safer, particularly at locations like this where you have the traffic on 14 in particular, that's high speed, high volume, limited number of gaps, particularly in the peak hours to trucking and cross that traffic. So this is a safety improvement that should have some real benefit there. There's actually discussion about doing that potentially on an interim basis at the 60th Avenue, what used to be County Road 104 intersection as well. So that may happen in the next few years. And then the other project is one on Highway 14 that actually extends into Dodge County all the way into Casson. So just a small share of it's in Olmsted County. But it's a project to overlay Highway 14. There'll also be a couple of bridges getting replaced, and again, a median cable barrier there. So the other 2023 projects are in the southeast part of the county, and these are all bridge projects. So MnDOT has a project, actually a 2-year project. This is the first year on Highway 30 between Chatfield and Stewartville. And the first year will replace bridges, one immediately west of Highway 52 in Chatfield, and then one about 4 or 5 miles to the west on 30. Then there's also a bridge replacement on a township or a county road, County Road 107 up here in Dover Township. So that is kind of a mapping element. What we see in 2023 in terms of highway projects had about a little over $13 million in those highway projects, another $27.6 million in transit projects, and then that trail project comes in at just under $500,000, the one on the railroad, the whole railroad spur line. So I'll stop there for a second for Brian or Al. If you have any questions or comments?
Charlie, I'll just jump in. And these are 23 projects. So your plan is these are for construction in 23. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, the money actually, because federal money comes out on a fiscal year, and the federal fiscal year actually starts October 1st.
October 1, yeah.
Yeah, but given our construction season, unless we've really been able to plan for that, we usually can't take too much advantage of like the 2023 money already this fall. So, great. Let's move to 24 then. So in 24, we'll do first at the Rochester area. We have the second phase of the transit station at St. Mary's. And 24 will be actually the year when you start to see a lot of work there. The 23 work is not so major. I think it's about 600,000 in 24. The estimated work is about 6 million. The other kind of main construction project that will be physically visible is the reconstruction of a section of North Broadway. So, we just all went through the reconstruction from Civic Center Drive up to the North Broadway Bridge. So in 2024, a project will start at the bridge and go north through the Elton Hills intersection. And basically the same kind of work, total reconstruction. There'll be sewer and water work associated with it. There'll be bike path, sidewalk work, the whole gamut, just like you'd see on the project that's just finishing up. So that will be a 2-year project actually for the city there as well. And then the other work that we have here is kind of behind in the boxes, in the traffic signal controllers and on the buses, where there'll be a project to install the necessary software to give the buses priority at the traffic signals. So if you have a bus that's approaching a signal that may be getting ready to turn red, the bus driver will be able to extend the green time on that to get through. And these projects are typically done on a corridor basis. So there's 3 of them, 3 corridors, 41st Street from 18th Avenue through the interchange of 52 to the West Frontage Road. Kind of the same thing on 37th Street, except that the signal at West River Road also will get included there. And then on 4th Street Southeast. So those are projects, simply that help the efficiency of the bus movement through those higher traffic corridors. And then in the southeast part of the county, as I've talked about already a little bit, the project on Highway 30. So in 2024, with the bridge work being done, that'll move into replacing the pavement on Highway 30 between Stewartville and Chatfield. And then along with that, a traffic signal. I believe I have it here as an upgrade, but I think it's actually they're going to replace the signal at the intersection of 63 and 30 in Stewartville. And then there's again a median barrier installation on I-90 between 42 and County 10. And then kind of the big cost project here is effectively the reconstruction of the interchange at I-90 and Highway 52. And the goal there is to improve the safety of the movements at that interchange. What's being observed is particularly a level of heavy commercial vehicle and semi-traffic. There's backups, particularly like southbound on 52 wanting to turn to go east on 90. But that's, people are seeing backups and getting caught and causing congestion. So that particular movement will actually get replaced with a flyover ramp. So that won't be an at-grade movement in the future. There'll be a ramp constructed starting north of 90, and it'll go over 90 and make the loop and then come so you can enter onto eastbound 90. And then the other ramps will be reconstructed to kind of soften, I guess I'll call it, some of the curves so they're not quite as sharp. And so hopefully some safety improvement from that as well. And the other thing we see here in the southwest part or southeast part of the county is one of about a half dozen safety projects again, dealing with installing, in this case, rumble strips on the center line. So this project is on County State Aid 1 starting at Highway 52 and then all the way out to the county line. And basically the benefit of those center line strips is to reduce the potential for people crossing the center line and that potentially lead to crashes. So it's a fairly low cost, but tends to have a pretty high benefit cost ratio. And in the northwest part of the north and northwest part of the county is where the other 5 rumble strip projects are planned. So kind of starting here on the west side on County Road 3, coming out of Pine Island all the way down to 12, west of Orinoco, County Road 12 between 63 and 52, County Road 18 going north up into Goodhue County, County Road 21 here east of 63 into Plainview, and then West River Road, which is County Road 133 between 55th and 75th Street. So those are all rumble strip. So we're looking in 2024 with $59 million roughly in highway work. And again, as I said, that interchange reconstruction right here, $32 million at I-90 and 52. And then the North Broadway project's estimated about $8 million. And then that work on 14 starting at County 5 and Marion and going into Dodge County is $9 million. But again, most of that work's in Dodge County. And then we have about $27 million in transit projects The thing I should say here, I didn't actually mention this in the 2023 group. So when you look at transit, you have usually a couple listings here that are for federal operating assistance. So the regular route and dial-a-ride services receive federal money just to run the service. Then federal money also goes into buying either replacement buses or buses for expansions. Some of that happens in 2024. Then the transit station improvements at St. Mary's, as I say, here we have 6, or actually almost $8 million, two phases there. And then that transit priority software. So I'll stop here for a second. Any questions or comments? Okay. When we move on to 2025, so I'm going to preface 2025 and 2026 with a little comment here. You're going to see a lot fewer projects in these 2 years, and the reason that that's happening, and you know, people everywhere are seeing price increases, right? Inflation, well, that's certainly happening to construction costs as well. So what we're seeing happening is that, for example, in last year's TIP, we had actually 3 of the years, 23, 24, and 25, were already included last year. And there were projects included in last year's TIP at a lower price, right? Now we're seeing this inflation, and we're seeing these price of projects go up. So MnDOT's having to take money to kind of backfill those price increases, and that money's coming out of 25 and 26. So we're seeing noticeably fewer projects in those 2 years as a result of that. Pretty much all due to inflation and construction costs. So in 25, as I said, that Broadway project, which is actually in here, you don't see it, but the second year of that work happens in 25. We also have a sidewalk, kind of pedestrian path project on 37th Street on the north side between West River Road and 18th Avenue. So that'll be a nice addition up there. Probably the most noticeable thing for motorists will be resurfacing of Highway 14 between 52 and Marion Road. So there's a lot of cones that just got put up there, which is for the project that's happening this year, which is the resurfacing from Marion Road to Chester. So once that gets done, there'll be a break for 1 year, and then in 2025, the state will come back and do the project here in the city. Another part of that project is actually some work at the Broadway intersection, where I believe all those free flow ramps will get removed, and it will operate like more of a kind of typical urban intersection with left turn and right turn lanes happening at the intersection. So that you will see that. I talked about the park and ride up on the north side. So in 2025, there's funding to acquire land for a park and ride that the city will then own on the south side. So it's kind of targeted in and around the area where Target and Fleet Farm, kind of the Main Street development is. I put a dot here, but this isn't necessarily where the final location will be, but it will be somewhere in this area close to the interchanges so that the buses can get off, pick up people, and quickly get back on to 63 Broadway. And then the last one on this slide here is the overpass beside County 35 going west out of Stewartville into High Forest. So that bridge will get replaced in 2025. And that's pretty much it for that year. $8 million in highway work, $47 million in transit, most of that being operating assistance up here. And then that pedestrian path coming in at a little under $1 million. So I'll just take a second here. Any comment or questions?
Hey, Charlie, question for you on that south parking area.
Yeah.
When I look at that, and the city must have had some interaction on placement of that transit parking lot up on 75th Street and Highway 52. Is there consideration for putting that south parking lot further out than being down there in that commercial area, or is the site already picked, or what does that look like?
I would say, there's been discussions over the years of doing something like at the airport exit. Although I haven't really heard much discussion about that in the recent years. But it could be something that the city would still consider. I just think it hasn't come up very much recently.
Yeah. Does the city get to